Here are some samples of some multiplayer games that I've created, and I'll give you some ideas on how to create your own. Okay, these are all taken off my website, anniewhoenglish.com, and like I said, you can just make your own. Okay, so here's a 2 to 4 player game. Okay, covering the S and the Z. Okay, you're going to flip a coin. Heads, you move to the next word with a phonetic S sound. Tails, you move to the next word with the phonetic Z sound. Okay, so it's really just voiced and unvoiced. Remember the S, S, and the Z, Z. Okay, so Z would be voiced, S would be unvoiced. Okay, the first player to land on the last word at their own base wins. Okay, this is your basic template of a game board. You would go this way for letter A if you are player A, and then you end and you exit here. Player B can start here, go all the way around, and exit here. Okay? C is down here. You start and you go around, and D would start here and go around. Okay? So, in other words, when you flip a coin, so if you're using a US coin and you have heads, that would be the side with the face on it, or tails, which would be the other side. You can use any type of 2 option. If you don't have a coin, you can use your phone. They have the dice, the free app, or on the Google website, the dice, and it'll roll it for you. You just choose 2 sides only. Okay, so let's say you flip a coin and it is heads. It says moves to the next word with a phonetic S sound. So player A, starting here, we have sandwich. Okay, so they would move here, right? The next player, let's say it's only a 2-player game, and so we want to start on C so that it's the opposite. They would start here. If they flipped heads, they would not go to music, that's a Z sound. Okay, breeze, that's a Z sound. So they would go all the way up to sunset, sunset with the S sound. Okay, so they would have their little token here. You could just use a little piece of paper, or if you have pieces that are different so they can tell each other apart. If you have 4 players, you could take a little piece of paper and put their initials on it so that they know which one's theirs. So their piece would be here. Okay, so the next player, the player A, is still on the first one, and they would toss the coin. And if it's heads, they would go to the S. If it's a tail, they would go to the Z. So let's say they do tail and they get Z. They wouldn't go to basket. They would go all the way down to maze. Okay, then we would just continue around. And remember, the first player to land on the last word at their own base wins. So coming up this way, A would win if they get to lesson first, whereas C would win if they get to recipe first. Okay? As soon as they land on that word, they win. Okay? It's always fun to have prizes. I will go over that in the next section. Then we have consonant sound game. Now, this is just more of a snake pattern that I created. Okay? This one covers many sounds. We have, if you roll the die, if you have a 1, you go to a block that has a S sound. If you go to a 2, you go to the T sound. If you roll a 3, the sh sound. A roll a 4, the Z sound. A 5, the duh, as opposed to duh. Now remember, this is not spelling. This is not spelled with a D. It's what you hear, the sound of a D. Okay? And if you go to roll a 6, you go to the ch sound. And again, that doesn't have to be spelled CH. It has to make the sound. Okay? So you can make your own grid, put in your own words. Just to give you some examples here, and always have an answer key. For many students, I give the answer key that they can reference in case there's an argument between the several players. Okay, That way they can just look at the list and they know for sure what the answer is. Of course, I'm always there to answer the question. Okay, so we have shop with a sh sound, filled with a D sound. Okay, watch has a ch. Okay, oranges, oranges. We're looking for the Z. Okay, it's spelled with an S, but it sounds like a Z. Okay, so if they were here and they rolled a 4, they would go to oranges. Now, watch the little signs on here. I put in little things like skip next turn. So the next time it's their turn, they don't get to go. It goes, they skip and they miss a turn. Okay, and you go all the way down. Okay, the first player to the finish wins. Okay, so if you're on acting, whatever you roll, unless it's a lose, if you're on a Z, you have to wait and roll again. Okay, so if you're on acting and you get a 4, you have to go here. Okay, but then on your next turn, you win. Okay, so you would win unless somebody wins before that if you're on this thing. So pretty much anyone down here has a good chance of winning the game. All right, another one is a win a square. Okay, this one I showed you some examples here of already completed. Okay, this is a circle and cross game where it's a 2-player game. You, if you connect 4 or more in a row, you earn a point. Okay, 1 point per word. Okay, and the player with the most points win. Okay, so again, you would flip a coin. If you have head, you're going to go with a hard G, as in glad. If you roll a tails, you get a soft G, as in J, general. So we're looking for a G and J. You're going to want to preview these words all ahead of time so that they can hear it and they know it, and then they can practice. So if the first person is, let's say, an X, okay, and the other person is the red, the O, okay, every time they roll, they get to put their X on a square. So if the first time they roll and they get a heads, that would be, they could put it on guitar, guitar. Okay. If they roll a tail, they can put it on a soft G. Okay. As in bridge, bridge. Okay. Again, you could just make a grid and put in your own words to practice. You can use any combination of sounds you want to do. For this kind of game, you have to have just 2 types of sounds. Okay. The last game I showed you, you can have several. You need 6 actually to use the dice. But with the win a square, you can only have 2 sounds because they have to pick one for heads and one for tails. Okay. Then they count it up. Let's say this was all finished. Any in a row, if they have at least 4 in a row, they get a point for each word. Okay. So just looking at the X here, they have one here, 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 and here. So you can do it horizontal, diagonal, or vertical. So if we go horizontal, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So for this chain, they would get 8 points. And then over here, they only have 3. 1, 2, 3. No points for that one. Okay. Obviously, they would fill in the entire thing. Okay. So the only kind of trick to this game that some students will figure out right away is you want to pick the words that are next to others so that you can make that chain to get the points. Again, have fun. Have some prizes. Students love prizes, even if it's just a pencil or a sticker, or if you're teaching online, like a digital reward card. Okay, enjoy it, and I will give you some more tips on how to make your own in the next lesson. Besides all the activity ideas that I've given you with the mazes and things like that you can do, it's also fun to play games. Students love games. If you have the privilege of working with 2 or more students, multiplayer games can bring a lot of fun and excitement to your class. People tend to be naturally competitive and they want to win. There are some cultural issues. Again, you'll have to use your discretion on what kind of students you have. Not only culture, but you also have personalities. You don't want anyone's feelings to be hurt. Okay, so make sure you maintain control of the situation so that it doesn't get out of hand. Okay, that being said, a little rowdiness can bring a lot of excitement to the class, and it's always beneficial if you're in person to have some little prizes, even if it's nothing of any monetary value at all, just a little something. Even hard candies can be fun. Okay, and again, respect any religious or social norms against any sort of like food product or any actual product. So use your head, think about it, use what's appropriate for your students. Okay. But as you gain control and you have some fun with the competitiveness of people, you can mix this in with your class. Okay. So I'm going to show you some examples of some games, but some general ideas that if you do play games, if you are in person and you actually have dice to use, that's great. If you don't, you can just use Google, just Google dice, and there's a way to roll dice virtually on their phones or on their computers. Okay, just make sure you pick the right sided die. Same thing. So if you're using like a coin for heads or tails, for the dice you would use a two-sided die only. Okay, for regular dice you would use the six-sided standard size die. Okay, so that being said, that's a way to work around that. With tokens, if you don't have any tokens from like a used board game that you have, like Sorry or something like that, just have them rip up small little pieces of paper and put their initial on it, and they can move that around the board. Okay. There's ways to do it if you're virtual. You can use the drawing and the if you're on Zoom and things like that. So you'll have to be creative if you are virtual for the two-player games.